Anatomy of Failed Reform examines how system designs to cure long-standing failures may have replicated and in some cases worsened the very problems it was made to fix, from operational breakdowns and inherited debts to procurement controversies and large-scale fraudulent claims. The SHA experiment has exposed deep structural weaknesses in Kenya's approach to public health financing. At the center of this investigation are revelations that billions of shillings may have been lost through fraudulent claims under the new system, including reports of an estimated 11 billion siphoned within the first month of SHA operations. These claims raise a fundamental question: how could a reform anchored on digital systems, audits, and tighter controls fall victim to the same schemes that plagued its predecessor? Tonight on EBN TV, I take an in-depth look at the rise, rollout, and unraveling of Kenya's most ambitious health reform in decades. This is not just a story about system and money. It is about accountability, public trust, and what happens when reform promises collide with institutional reality. And this is the anatomy of a failed reform: migration from NHIF to SHA in Kenya. The 11 billion fraud controversy opening in recent years, Kenya's public health insurance system has undergone a dramatic overhaul. The National Hospital Insurance Fund, NHIF, the institution that operated Kenya's public health insurance for decades, was dissolved and replaced with a new framework centered on the Social Health Authority, SHA, and multiple health insurance funds. The aim was ambitious: improve access to health care and reduce rampant leakages within NHIF. Instead, the transition has been riddled with technical governance, legal and fraud scandals, culminating in reports that about 11 billion shillings was lost to fraud within the first 6 months of SHA operations. And we're starting with the historical background of the NHIF. And the National Hospital Insurance Fund was created in 1966 to provide hospital insurance cover to employed Kenyans and their families. Over time, it became Kenya's primary social health insurer, responsible for paying hospitals and clinics for services to insured patients. However, from the 1990s through the 2020s, NHIF faced recurring accusations of corruption, fraud, and inefficiency, including inflated or bogus claims, ghost facilities, and unpaid bills that strained hospital operations. And why we needed the reform. The move toward SHA by the early 2020s, most policy makers agreed that NHIF was unfit to deliver on universal health coverage UHC goals. Therefore, Parliament passed the Social Health Insurance Act 2023, repealing the old NHIF law and creating a new structure that included Social Authority, the SHA, the regulatory and operational body, Social Health Insurance Fund, SHIF, Primary Healthcare Fund, PHC, other sub-funds for chronic and emergency care. The stated goals were greater accountability, deeper coverage, fairer contributions, and stronger prevention of fraud. What changed legally and structurally? The new act mandated automatic migration of existing NHIF members into the SHA schemes. Contributors did not need to re-enroll. The accounts were carried over with the intention of continuity of coverage. SHA assumed all subsidies, liabilities, and responsibilities previously under NHIF, and while legally sound, ministry officials cited legal notices to justify the process. Many Kenyans felt the transition was forced and lacked full public consultation. The migration logic from NHIF to SHA, the government argued that a centralized and digitally enabled system would minimize fraud, fake claims, and ghost facilities. Advanced data analytics could detect irregular billing patterns before payments were made. Broader funds like PHC would standardize primary and preventive care access. Officials repeatedly assured that NHIF member funds and contributions would be preserved and that payouts would continue without disruption. And we also had the early technical and administrative challenges where, despite the promises, the migration faced system failures and portal outages that delayed claim validation and reimbursements, frustrating both providers and patients. Confusion as owed NHIF debt, billions in unpaid claims, was inherited by SHA, causing cash flow challenges for hospitals. We had also strikes and legal action from unions representing former NHIF staff whose roles, pay, and entitlements changed under the transition. And how payments and claims changed with SHA. The new SHA system introduced a digital claims a platform that applies automated checks, verifying patient details, matching services claimed with medical records, detecting unusual billing patterns. The authority has reported rejecting billions worth of claims identified as fraudulent or non-compliant. Government briefings have emphasized that every rejected payment is an effort to safeguard public funds, and Ministry of Health and the fraud controversy and the 11 billion allegation. Latest from the Daily Nation today's Daily Nation headline states that the Social Health Authority lost about 11 billion Kenyan shillings to fraud between October 2024 and April 2025. These losses were apparently uncovered by an internal Ministry on Health audit, which reported that a substantial portion of the funds were siphoned through fraudulent claims submitted primarily by private hospitals. The newspaper highlights that fake claims and inflated billing involving admissions that never happened, bills for procedures that were never performed, and use of systemic loopholes to exploit the reimbursement system. This eruption of fraud is especially significant because SHA was introduced partly to prevent such abuses, meaning that the problem has persisted even under the new model. And what the fraud cases entail, investigations, both official and media reports, paint a picture of upcoding and phantom billing. Hospitals billed for expensive inpatient care when patients received simple outpatient services, claims for services never rendered. Some claims showed procedures that never occurred yet paid for by SHA. And number 3, correspondence with fake facilities. Evidence shows payments made to institutions that either don't exist or lack the capacity to deliver billed services. Officials say audits and digital fraud agents flagged most of these cases, leading to rejections amounting to over 10.6 billion and investigations into an additional stake of suspicious claims. The standard official and government responses. Health Cabinet Secretary Erin Duale has publicly acknowledged the problem, stating that SHA will not pay fictitious claims and that verification and forensic review are now essential before any payments are made. Moving on to the Star, the ministry reports that cases of fraud have been referred to law enforcement agencies for prosecution, and President William Ruto has also urged institutions involved in the scandal to refund stolen funds and threatened criminal prosecution for looters. We're also looking at the political and public fallout. The fraud revelations have provoked criticism from MPs and public commentators who argue that the reforms have not delivered promised transparency. The sparked calls for greater oversight of SHA's governance and independent audit, fueled skepticism among Kenyans who tolerated NHIF's weaknesses, now worry that similar patterns persist under SHA. Systemic and structural weaknesses highlighted. Experts note that automation alone cannot eliminate fraud unless human oversight and accountability structures are robust. Financial controls and public procurement compliance and effective enforcement remain critical. Legal action against perpetrators must follow swiftly to restore public confidence. We're also looking at the broader implications for health coverage in Kenya, and despite setbacks, the reform aims to expand coverage to millions previously uninsured, introduce men's testing for contributions to promote equity, and use of data analytics to detect irregularities earlier. And however, the 11 billion fraud controversy now risks eroding trust unless addressed decisively. Whether things stand as of early 2026, SHA is fully operational, replacing NHIF. Digital systems are being refinanced and expanded and audited. Fraud allegations continue to emerge, highlighted by today's reporting on the 11 billion stolen. Law enforcement and regulatory action are ongoing but contested. What must happen going forward? And for the reform to succeed, we need to have transparency, publish all audit findings and timelines for addressing irregularities, accountability, prosecute individuals and institutions involved in fraud, system improvement, strengthen internal controls and data verification process, and 4, public engagement, whereby ensure Kenyans understand their rights, benefits, and how to report fraud. And 15, final takeaways for viewers. Kenya's health insurance reform is ambitious but remains deeply publicly challenged. The transition from NHIF to SHA was legally grounded but poorly executed and now tainted by fraud allegations. Today's report by the Daily Nation reveals an estimated 11 billion fraud uncovered in the first 6 months of the SHA operations, striking at the core of the reform's promise. The future of Kenya's public health insurance hinges on transparency, accountability, and real reform, not merely reorganizing an old system into a new institutional shell. And now we're asking very few questions concerning the same. How did a reform designed specifically to eliminate NHIF-era fraud allow billions of shillings in fraudulent claims to pass through within months of its launch? Question 2. What due diligence was conducted before migrating NHIF systems, liabilities, and personnel into SHA, and who approved that process? Question 3. Where exactly did the controls fail? In system design, human oversight, procurement, or political interference? Question 5. Who bears legal and administrative responsibility for the alleged 11 billion loss, and why has no senior official been held publicly accountable so far? Question 6. Were warning signs raised internally before or during the transition, and if so, were they ignored, suppressed, or overridden? And those few questions brings this explainer to an end. Thank you for watching. Coming up next is the Midweek Report. Is 23059. This is how Midweek Report starts. The United Opposition says it will name its 2027 presidential flag bearer to face President William Ruto upon conclusion of the DCP National Delegates Conference. Speaking during the Democratic Party National Delegates Conference at Ufungamano House, Nairobi County, the leaders also announced that they are instituting legal proceedings against perpetrators who are attacking against DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua in charge in Othaya.
That of DCP, that we shall make whatever sacrifices necessary to have one presidential candidate to make William Ruto one term.
We are going to call for one forum for all the one-term movement candidates everywhere in the country to get together and agree, because that is how we are now also going to bolster our voter registration numbers.
Anyone who's betting for our differences, you will lose your bet. You will lose your bet. We are going to stand together and we are going to remain united.
Tuko pamoja as united opposition with one common purpose: kuleta uongozi bora katika nchi yetu, kuleta uongozi wa mwongozo ya kisheria.
Vile DP mnasema umoja na haki, our unity is not a choice, it's an imperative. Kama tunamtoa Kasongo one term, lazima tuungane hadi mwisho na tutoe mmoja wetu.
The Democratic Party stands ready to play its part. I want to assure you, the united opposition stands firm. The people of Kenya are awake. History will judge us not by what we said, but by whether we rose when the nation needed.
In a similar story, Anglican Church of Kenya Archbishop Jackson Ole Sapit has condemned the attack at St. Peter's SEK Church in Witima, Othaya over the weekend, terming it unacceptable and calling for peace and respect for places of worship. Bishop Sapit says the incident points to an erosion of the democratic space that Kenyans fought for, urging President William Ruto not to allow such acts to take root. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was attending a church service at the time of the incident on Sunday. Archbishop Sapit again spoke while officiating the launch of a mental health guide for religious leaders in Mombasa, aimed at strengthening the role of faith institutions in identifying and addressing mental health challenges.
We want to join the bishop of that diocese and the Christians and Kenyans at large to condemn that barbaric action of storming into a church space, tear gassing worshippers in their worship hour. It was very, very unfortunate. We have seen vehicle and property destroyed, and it was a moment where people had a solemn worship in a church. And now the worrisome part is they normally present themselves as good. But we ask the question, who has a custody of tear gas in this country other than the security apparatus? If tear gas is used in every or in any installation or institution, we have then no doubt who is using it, because it is only used by those people who hold it and who have it. So I want to urge every apparatus and system of this country, from the executive, the presidency, all the way to anyone who gives orders, and particularly the security agencies, to give the church a...
And matters education, the Ministry of Education now says it has achieved a 96% transition rate for learners in grade 10. CS Julius Ogambo informed members of parliament that despite the challenges that plagued the week exercise, nearly all regions in the country registered over 94% transition rate, apart from the Coast region, which had 89% of its grade 10 learners moved to grade 10. At the same time, the CS says that there is a 48.3 billion shillings deficit in the financing of basic education in the country.
Amounts that we indicated as capitation for the government, that is giving the 1,540, the 15,000 and the 22,000, was arrived at after a task force was established, and they did an analysis and came up with those figures. Having said that, Honorable Boy, the simple answer to your question is that we actually, as a country, do not know how much it costs to educate a child from grade 1 all the way to university. And I'll explain to you the reason, and members, since we are all here as leaders, it is good to...
And matters health CS Aden Duale now says the government is tracking down all perpetrators involved in the 11 billion Social Health Authority scandal, saying most of the cases reported between October 2024 to April 2025 were related to fraudulent surgeries. Speaking in Naivasha during a National Assembly retreat in Naivasha, Duale said action had been taken over 50 medics who were involved in the scandal, with their SHA authorization withdrawn.
Those are money lost in the sense that they have claimed we have found them, they are remitting, some of them are going to court, some of them have agreed to return back our money, and we have not finished. We have, I don't want to, there are some things that belong to the criminal justice system. I don't want to speak for. I have the whole list. The biggest junk is the private hospitals, followed by the county hospitals, followed by the National Referral Hospital, including Kenyatta, MTRH. The lowest is with the faith-based hospital.
15 new judges of the Court of Appeal were sworn in at State House in a ceremony presided over by President William Ruto. The new appeal court judges include President Ruto's longtime lawyer Katwa Kigen, and Ahmed Isa Kassan, who is the outgoing chairperson of IPOA. Others include Matthews Nduma Nderi, Lynette Mumondolo, Chacha Mwita, among others. The appointments made yesterday now raises the number of judges and the Court of Appeal from 27 to 42. President William Ruto again says the expanded bench is expected to deepen the judiciary's ability to adjudicate complex legal and constitutional matters with greater efficiency ahead of the 2027 general election cycle.
I, Hedwig Mbosa Omuti, a judge of the Court of Appeal, do swear in the name of the Almighty God to diligently serve the people and Republic of Kenya and to impartially do justice in accordance with this Constitution as by law established and the laws and customs of the Republic without any fear, favor, bias, affection, ill will, prejudice, or any political, religious, or other influence.
To diligently serve the people and the Republic of Kenya, and to impartially do justice in accordance with this Constitution, with a view to upholding the dignity and the respect for the judiciary and the judicial system of Kenya, and promoting fairness, independence, competence, and integrity within it. So help me God.
Congratulate the judges sworn in today, and assure you of this administration's continued support as you serve the people of Kenya. May your tenure strengthen justice, deepen public confidence in our courts, and reinforce the constitutional foundations of our republic. Again, congratulations to you and my very, very best wishes. Thank you very much.
Moving on with the midweek report, the High Court has dismissed the compensation case filed by victims and families affected by the 1998 Nairobi bomb blast, ruling that the petition lacked legal merit. In the judgment, the court held that the petitioners failed to prove the government had prior intelligence that could have prevented the attack. Justice Lawrence Mugambi, while acknowledging the immense suffering endured by the survivors and bereaved families, he emphasized that sympathy could not replace the legal threshold required to establish state liability. The ruling deals a blow to victims who have lived with injuries, trauma, and economic hardships for over 2 decades. They expressed disappointment with the decision and confirmed they will appeal to higher court.
The court has today made a decision. Nonetheless, we wish to say that we are disappointed by that decision of the court, and in a few days we will be moving to the Court of Appeal because we feel that we provided sufficient evidence that the court would have relied on to find that the government of Kenya knew or ought to have known that an attack, that is the 1998 bomb blast attack, was to take place. We provided enough evidence, voluminous evidence, to prove that the government knew or ought to have known that there was an attack that was likely to take place.
If the ruling class were affected in this, we could get justice. But now, this is injustice, pure injustice in the justice system. This Justice Mugambi has relied just only on the respondents' replies, but he didn't have time to look into the files, what we filed.
Oh yeah, I'm listening.
The way we have gone, because they were
Some members of the Luo community in Kajiado County have said they will continue to support the Kenya Kwanza government through the inclusive government arrangement. They have also urged leaders of the ODM party to put an end to internal wrangles that have been witnessed within the party and instead promote unity, as was championed by their former leader, the late Raila Odinga. The community further proposed that Dr. Oburu Oginga and National Security Principal Secretary Dr. Raymond Omolo should continue leading them in political dialogue ahead of the 2027 general election.
Court has today made
hapa kutangaza ya kwamba tuko kwa broad based ambaye tuliwachiwa na Raila Amolo Odinga pamoja na William Ruto president yetu. Sisi tuko nyuma yao.
We are there to stay. Na tunataka kusupport William Ruto to the letter. Na tukiacha hiyo bado maendeleo tunaona yamepeleka huko Ujaluoni, tuko na stima, tuko na siasa kina Mbadi, akina Wandai, maendeleo ziko. Only person that can give us that what is happening in the government is only Raymond Omolo. So we are requesting, we are demanding that anytime the talk is ongoing over UDA and ODM, Oburu Odinga and Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto, Raymond Omolo must be included in that talk.
So I'm urging all the people who are bringing the differences to come together and sit on the table as one family and be in the broad-based government and continue with the developments that the president is giving us as the people of Nyanza.
Toweni Dr. Oburu Odinga kwa mdomo zenu. Dr. Oburu Odinga ndio Gen Z leader wa ODM na wa broad-based government. Dr. Oburu Odinga with William Samoei Ruto tunawasupport, tuko nyuma yenu kama sisi kama
That story brings midweek report to a short break. Don't go too far. We're coming back. You're just joining us now. This is Midweek Report. This is EBN TV. My name is Jeffrey Kimaiyu Somba. Welcome back. Now moving on, following the President's directive to grade 10 students to report to school despite challenges related to school fees and uniforms, head teachers in Bungoma County have welcomed the move and pledged to ensure 100% school attendance. Speaking to the media at Bungoma Boys National School after receiving students from both well-performing and financially challenged backgrounds, the school's principal Wycliffe Wambuchi said the institution is ready to admit more than 800 students. He also added that strong strategies have been put in place to accommodate more learners, including improving infrastructure to support the competency-based education CBE curriculum.
To take the boy to school, the class, and arrange to get some little uniform, like one pair, awaiting another payment. So those students are coming. They come without uniform, they come without school fees. But the only option we have is to admit. We can sort out the other issues later, but they should be in class. Our capacity initially, even away from what we were given, I told you we were given around 650, but our capacity will accommodate it up to 800. 800 students. If they came up to 800, we are fit to go. Of course, the challenges we face When I say about capacity, I'm looking at the bed capacity, I'm looking at the classrooms. But now, of course, we are faced with the challenge of ensuring they have furniture that we are also doing. It's about, like, when you look at the challenge of finance, especially in boarding, it's not about the ministry. It's about the parents. My appeal is to those groups that give finance to the parents in terms of boarding. Now maybe the CDFs and other avenues need to be empowered to ensure that they support, especially the less privileged.
And on good news, a mental health guide for religious leaders has been launched in Mombasa, aimed at strengthening the role of faith-based institutions in identifying and addressing mental health challenges. Speaking during the launch, Chiromo Hospital Chairman Professor Frank Jenga said that for a long time, faith and medical treatment have conflicted, causing many people to continue suffering from mental health problems without receiving proper support. At the same time, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya, Dr. Jackson Olesapit, condemned the attack that occurred at St. Peter's SK Church in Witima, although describing it as an act that undermines democracy in the country.
Organizations, Hindus, Muslims, and everybody else are fed up with the inaction and sense of paralysis that we have all felt over the years around the subject of mental health.
We come from yesteryears when issues around mental health challenges were regarded as quote-unquote a curse, and you are profiled. Our interactions and engagement and training with Dr. Frank and Chiromo Hospital Group has enabled us to appreciate that mental health is an illness like any other illness.
I want to make an appeal to every Christian church. Embrace this. The tool we are launching is not for the Anglican Church, it is for the whole body of Christ. It can also be used by other faith and other practitioners because it blends the issues of faith and what modern science is teaching us, and we want to strike a balance.
Residents of Camp Katet in Bureti constituency have called on Kericho County leaders to clean drainage systems and collect garbage that has piled up in the town and around the market area. The residents criticized some county officials, including the governor and the Kapkatet ward representative, for failing to carry out their responsibilities of keeping Kapkatet and Bureti clean, despite collecting taxes daily. Kericho Governor Dr. Eric Mutai has been accused of making development promises for the region that have yet to be fulfilled.
Shida nyingi, maji hakuna toilets ya Kapkatet Market. Watu wakitaka kusaidia wanaenda kando ya nyumba ya watu. Hata barabara ile ingesaidia hata wagonjwa kuingia hospitali ni tabu. Wanabiashara ya ndonyo hata takataka haiwezi kukolektiwa. So iko shida nyingi.
Tangu tu wakati wa uchaguzi tuliwaona tu viongozi kwa uwanja wakiomba viti, wakisunguka Kapkatet nzima wakiomba viti, lakini hata Sunday peke yake ambaye hatujawahi ona sura zao tangu wachaguliwe. Tunajua kwamba tena tunauliza kwamba Kapkatet ni wapi?
Ya kwanza street lights zimeharibika, ya pili takataka unaona zimeenea kila mahali. Kaunti ya Kericho haitusaidii kucollect takataka zenye ziko hapa hivi. Alafu kitu kingine ya tatu ni drainage. Ukiangalia vile kunakaa, drainage za Kapkatet zinakaa mbaya sana. Alafu pahali pa kutembea pia. Tulikuwa tumeambiwa kuwa tutawekewa cabros, lakini ukiangalia ni kubaya. Kukinyesha ni mbaya, kukiwa na jua pia unaona ni vumbi.
Some youths in Nyamira County staged peaceful demonstrations in Nyamira town to protest the rising cases of corruption among county government officials. This follows the suspension of the use of millions of shillings from World Bank funds by Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Badi due to unexplained expenditure to more than 20 million shillings meant for various development projects. Speaking to the media in the Konate area on the outskirts of Nyamira town, the youth accused Governor Amos Nyariba of being involved in corruption and called on him to resign to allow for free and fair investigations.
Nyaribo sababu hata hiyo barua imetoka World Bank imeandikiwa Nyaribo.
Ile pesa ambayo ingesaidia wananchi, barabara zijengwe, wananchi wapate maji safi, wananchi wapate kazi nafasi, lakini yeye ameamua kwamba yeye hakule pesa ya wananchi. Na ndio sababu sisi tumekuja kumwambia kwamba hatutanyamaza.
Nyaribo must come out clear, atuambie sisi kama wananchi wa Nyamira, mbona World Bank imeban pesa yetu na bado amenyamaza kwa ofisi. Hivyo we must hold him to account until 2027.
Tunakuja utuambie mbona it's only in Nyamira that pesa ya World Bank inarudishwa. It's only in Nyamira mali tumekosa kwa exchequer ya this financial year. We are coming. Na sisi tuko peaceful.
Into political mood, Jubilee Party leaders in Kiambu County have officially launched preparations for the 2027 general election, focusing on strengthening the party at the grassroots level and positioning it to lead a broad opposition coalition. Speaking during a meeting of party aspirants in Kiambu County, Jubilee Chairman Jonathan Mara and former women representative Ann Nyukabi said the party will begin registering members and voters before engaging in talks with other like-minded parties to challenge the current administration.
Zitakuwa za amani, siasa zetu zitakuwa za haki, na itakuwa ya kwamba tukienda pahali tunajua ya kwamba watu wanahitaji na wanataka sana uongozi ambao ni uko na usafi na uongozi ambao unawaongelesha vile tutaendelea, si uongozi ambao inatudanganya.
Sisi kama Jubilee tuko katika united opposition. We are together with the rest of the team. Ile team ya kina Kalonzo Musyoka, team ya kina Rigathi Gachagua, akina Eugene Wamalwa, sisi tuko pale ndani. Lakini kwanza lazima tujenge nyumba yetu kabla tujafika kwenye meza ile ya united opposition.
And moving on to sports, the Professional Golfers of Kenya, PGK, Equator Tour concluded at the Royal Nairobi Golf Club, bringing a highly competitive season to a close and highlighting the skill, consistency and growing prominence of Kenya's professional golfers. Safaricom team emerged as the winner of the Corporate Shield, underlining a dominant season that kept the company at the top of the corporate standings throughout the tour. The story brings us to the end of this program, but before we go,
my name is Samuel Njoroge Chege, professional golfer, sponsored by Safaricom. Today I'm happy. I started well, hole 1, hole 2, hole 3. Made some. They were good holes for me today. Hole 1 birdie, 2 birdie, 3 birdie. I was doing well until hole 5. Drop a shot there, recover again on hole 7. Basically, I can say that my round today was.
Sorry for that, and we were feeling that we were finished, but we had to play the sponsor video for you. Sorry for that. But before we go off, there are some very few audience or viewers that I have to recognize with and questions that they're asking, and maybe if it will be responded to later, or we wait and see. We've got Dina Mwania. Jeff, good evening, Mr. Following midweek report from Eastlands, we've Simon Peter there watching, Sharon Mageni following, Cheryl is saying 11 billion is absurd. Shadrach Baina attacking in charge is not right. Dina again, does CS Migosi really know how many peoples are still at home for lack of school fees and uniform? Another question, 11 billion. How can Mr. Ndwale explain in length It's a lot of money in someone's pocket, yet the Ministry of Health like enough funds to pay doctors and nurses or even buy medicines. This sure thing. Then Cheryl again, why did existing financial controls fail to prevent this? Then can SHA still meet its mandate after such a huge financial loss? And maybe the last one because of time. Nekoye is watching. So thank you so much for watching the Midweek Report. My name is Jeffrey Kimaiyu Somba. We want to thank you so much for following our programs and bulletins from the start of this day until this time. We thank you and may you keep following EBN TV. Remember, last year we were counted or even awarded as the best Christian TV station of the year. So we are here committed and ready to serve you all the information, the programs that you need. We are ready to serve you. So thank you so much for riding all through with us, and thank you for watching the Midweek Report. Again, my name is Jeffrey Kimaiyu Somba. Till tomorrow, we wish you a good night.